Hey, welcome back to Dealer Confidential. And I am back after a week of Greg thinks I was on vacation. I was actually working at a conference.
Yeah,
And I'm
sure.
glad to be back with the guys, Greg and Joe. It's great to be here with you. Thanks
Welcome
for,
back. We missed you, buddy. Yeah, absolutely.
thank you. Thanks.
Welcome
I
back.
missed you guys. What are we talking about, Greg?
We're talking about law and order.
Oh, I fought the law and the law won.
That's what today's podcast is about. You could fight the law, but 9 out of 10 times, 99 out of 100, the law is going to win.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to try to help you through that and try to avoid a situation that puts you and your partners and your finance people in a position of, I never thought I'd be in this position. I thought we were covered. I mean, you could come up with every excuse in the sun, but guess what? You're in that position.
Yeah.
So let's start it off, Hal.
Well, we talked about all of these things are investment, return, and risk. And when there's a lawsuit that's pending and there's no, that adds to buyer risk. Additional buyer risk is going to impact everything. It's going to impact the goodwill. It's going to impact the confidence of the bank. It's going to impact the OEM, especially if this thing is public and it's
Right.
nasty. There are different degrees of lawsuits. But if you're a selling dealer and you have one, obviously the best thing is to get it done. I mean, pay it off, do it, whatever, get it resolved before you go to market. But there are times, and I have had times where I'm representing a seller who wants to get out of the business, wants to sell his deal and there's a lawsuit. It was a frivolous lawsuit, and a lot of them are, some of them aren't, but this one was a frivolous lawsuit, and he disclosed it. We disclosed it early to the buyer and explained exactly what it was all about, and we mitigated any conflict, and it was able to be resolved without dislodging or derailing the deal because we were transparent.
Right.
Transparency goes a long way in these deals, right?
Well, let's talk about the lingering legal aspect. We all know this. We've had companies, we've owned dealerships, we've done all that in the past. And we have this feeling that, hey, I'm buying a new dealership. I've got a brand new corporation. I got a brand new, great, excellent lawyer. And we're going to go in there. We're going to buy assets only and buy the franchise. And we're pretty much clear of anything that happened in the past because we have a new corp. And what we're doing is buying assets. We're not buying his liabilities or his financial his financial situation with banks. We're not, taking the bank over. We're not taking his line over. We're not doing any of that stuff. So I'm pretty much protected, aren't I?
No. I mean, I had to think about it. No, I didn't. No, you're not protected. I mean, it's a reputational thing, right? I mean, these lawsuits, whether you're right or whether you're wrong, I mean, people are going to find out about this, and it does impact a business, and it impacts a brand. And to the extent that it impacts your brand, it impacts your deal.
Yeah.
And so you can't just kind of, okay, I'm 100% protected. And Joe will tell you from his past, this is one of those things that you really want to be careful with, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that, to Greg's point and your point, a lot of guys go in a deal and they want to be, sneaky about it and not disclose, to your point, whatever transgression may be in the middle of the way.
Well, Joe, not to interrupt you, tell us what you feel a transgression would be. Some examples.
Well, so I'll give you an example. I mean, here's an example, right? I mean, you pick up the automotive news. The F&I department and the sales department are really a problem if you're not running things according to let's get federal right now. The FTC. Everybody knows right now FTC is on a warpath, and it's only going to get worse because what's happening is all the states need money. So what happened just recently is Pandora's box opened on the federal side, and they said we're going to go after these guys, which means the state now piggybacks on the federal side. So now you've got both a federal agency as well as the state coming down on you. So let's say you're a dealer who's advertising erroneous prices and you got caught by the FTC. Okay, now that's a lawsuit that's going to be pending on that current dealer. Granted, you sell the facility, okay, and now the new ownership takes place. They're going to be people coming into the showroom saying, I bought a car, and I found out that you guys overcharged me on the interest rate or whatever, or sold me a warranty that I didn't even know was in my contract. And if that person then is going to file a complaint, and for example, New Jersey is very strict. One of the big strict things when you file for a dealer license, for example, in New Jersey, and there's other states follow suit, you have to send pictures. An investigator comes over to look at the facility, look at your parking. Look, they want to make sure that you're a true entity that's actually doing business in that physical address. But what happens with that too is that a lot of that gets transposed to the new buyer anyway. So you don't escape 100% that potential lawsuit. Yeah, the actual dollar amount and the transaction and that transgression is between the old buyer and the state or the FTC, et cetera. But it has massive implications still on the current new buyer, because he still has to deal with the consumer who's coming back in for service, who's coming in to potentially buy or trade in the car, and that's going to create if it's a really disgruntled customer, they may do a deal and then sue the new guy. So because of the former transgression, so it just doesn't go away. And to your point out, it's so much easier on the table if you say, look, guys, everything's fine. I have one issue. Let's talk about it. Let me tell you what it is, and and this way it's disclosed, and then the buyer can make a decision whether or not they're comfortable pursuing the deal, or you might negotiate. It might have an impact on the blue sky. Most likely, if it's a very large potential lawsuit.
Hey, Hal, let me ask you something. Do we have a Pandora's box here from COVID because of all those deals that were, and we all three of us know that were very questionable at times. All those COVID deals, the lease deals, the lease returns, the lease buybacks, all that stuff. It's coming due 3-4 years later, and here we are. Is this about to explode on some of these dealers?
Well, I mean, the environment is ripe, as Joe just said. I mean, you've got more compliance oversight, combination of, these cars were being sold at, hundreds of tens of $1,000s over sticker, addendum stickers, all kinds of stuff was going on with, they were selling these cars, when the car wasn't even there. It was in the pipeline, right? So they were making money on the floor plan interest because it never hit the floor plan before it got sold. So literally rolling off the motor convoy truck right into a customer's garage. And there was probably, it was a feeding frenzy. Let's just call it like it was. Very strange days that are probably in the past now, but the long-term impacts are probably still being felt.
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
Still have a timestamp on those deals.
Hey, Joe, if there is no timestamp. Joe, if you're F&I guy, you decided that you bought a franchise, a new dealership, you're going to keep your F&I guy, and that was there. And the F&I guy, we find out, did some of these deals that we're talking about. Right. What bothered me the most when I had my dealerships was the signature process, and how at any level you have to keep watching these guys with 4 eyes, because they will send out contracts to be signed, send out the runner with a car with a contract to be signed by some person somewhere, and then bring it back. Isn't that a absolute time bomb for all these contracts that we did concierge style service for these customers?
Absolutely. The dealership is responsible by the nature of your dealer license. And because don't forget, there's 2 licenses. There's the dealer license, and then there's the banking license.
Right.
The banking license says, I represent Bank of America, for example, is one of the banks that I'm signed up with, and I'm doing a contract for a customer with Bank of America. So I'm a representative as the dealership for Bank of America, which I'm entitled to do that. The problem is there's, to your point, there's specific regulations as to what you can and can't do. One of the large regulations, which a lot of dealers break, and this is the problem also, which is another topic for another time, the broker deals, is that the customer has to be at the facility to sign for the contract. Correct. It cannot be outside of the facility. If there are extraordinary circumstances, you have to call the bank to get an approval. The person's in a hospital, whatever. You have to get that approval before you proceed. But dealers, like you said, they send a lot kid. Go have this guy sign this, and and if that deal blew up or if there was a problem with the consumer, he has a right to mitigate with that contract. And that in most states, the banking regulations, that's usually what it is. So, it's again, there's so many things that are being bypassed, and dealers are not paying attention. I mean, God forbid that could turn into a class action lawsuit. Then you're really in trouble.
And I think remember we were talking to a prospective buyer, and it turns out that the next day we saw he had a $850,000 lawsuit. No, not a lawsuit. It was a claim. Not even what's the right word for it. The government imposed
a judgment.
It was a judgment. Exactly. It was an $850,000 judgment against this dealer, and we were trying to place him in a new dealership that we were getting ready
for fraud.
For fraud, right? Yeah, for fraud. That's what it was. And it was a federal judgment. It wasn't somebody suing him. It was the feds coming after him.
Right.
Let's bring this all. We got enough time for today. So let's bring this all together. How does this affect seller, and how Joe, and how does this affect buyer, Greg? So let's start. How does this affect the seller? All of these potential pitfalls.
Typically, what you'll find with this pending lawsuit, if the deal, if everything else is comfortable, there'll be an escrow that's put aside pending the settlement of this lawsuit, the effective settlement of this lawsuit. So there's some money, or there's some reps and warranties. There's some indemnification provisions to address the risk that may be ongoing with this lawsuit. Joe mentioned it. You could, there's a price reduction, a goodwill reduction because of this cloud that's on the dealership. A lot of this has to do with the public visibility around this. The size of this. If this thing has hit the state regulators, or if it's just kind of a little thing like I had to deal with. There's a lot of things that will creep into the contract because this thing is still pending, right? Yeah. And you have to mitigate that with the buyer is going to want protection. That's what it means for the seller is.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Al, it boils down to the key thing is two key things in my opinion. One is disclosure. No matter what, you've got to disclose it and talk about it. Once you have the disclosure, then the second point is, what are we dealing with? So, for example, let's say I'm selling the dealership and I have a customer, my tech put the wrong oil, blew up the engine. He's suing me. He wants a new engine or a new car. That's something that could be handled. It'll take some time, but it can be handled pretty easily. It's not that detrimental. But let's flip it to another situation. Let's say that now the inspector came in and said, we found oil in the back lot. Somebody dumped oil back there. Oh, immediately EPA gets called. OSHA's involved. Now you're talking. Not only is it could be economically large, but also time. Because now if you get a federal agency or a big state agency involved in something like that, it's going to drag things down substantially. And they're going to put it, as I said earlier, they're going to put a timestamp on the address, not just the business. It's the location geographically that's being altered because of the scenario. So this gets so complex. And again, our expertise, because we've seen this so much, and and we can bring this clarity to the table for people that need the help.
Yeah. I think, Joe, you're 100% right. You got two things. You got the feds on one side from a banking standpoint, and then you got the feds or the state on the other side from an EPA or environmental standpoint. The EPA, there's nothing in the world you can get around that because you just bought that property, and you bought that property assuming it was clean because you had a reference saying that it was clean, or a study or a test that were done. You own that property. You have to clean it. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Yes. Do you have the ability to go back to the seller? Well, if the seller did something wrong, you do have ability to go back to him. But if he had all the reports and he did everything in good faith, and all of a sudden there's something that's found, I think you own that, don't you?
Well, it depends on the language in the contract. Again, reps and warranties protect you against these kind of unknown unforeseen situations. Usually there's a time limit on the reps and warranties. There's an overall umbrella in terms of dollars, and then there's a collar. It's got to be a $25,000 problem, or it doesn't even. You got to take care of it. So those three things, depending on how the contract was written, it could or could not be a seller issue.
Yeah.
But if it's and if the seller knew about it, then it's really a problem, right?
Yeah, let's talk about from the buyer standpoint. What we've just created for the buyer is an absolute nightmare for his dealership in the sense of opening it, starting to run it, starting to do whatever he wants to do to make it successful, because all of a sudden you have all these roadblocks to put in place and you have to deal with. And the next thing you have to deal with, and we'll spend the next maybe 5 minutes or so talking about this, is the social repercussion. Like Hal said, you said before, the customer that comes in, a COVID baby, he just realized that he is paying $10,000 a month for a car, whatever it might be, jokingly. And he can't lease a new car. So all of a sudden you have all this social implication, because each of those individuals is going to go online. They're going to give you bad reports. They're going to give you all kinds of negatives wherever they may find you. And that has nothing to do, it has everything to do with the old dealership, but now it has everything to do with the new dealership, especially if you retain the name and the location and everything else. Because you own the Chevy store in town, everybody in town knows that it's the Chevy store. Whether Hal owns it or Joe owns it, it's the Chevy store. And that's where we bought our cars, and that's where we're going back. So, God, this is just pitfall after pitfall, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Again, I always talk about due diligence. I mean, this is where you've got to make sure that the team you're working with, whether it's the person who's representing you on the buy or sell, whether it's your attorney or combination of both, that are really focused on, like I keep bringing up F&I because there's so much stuff that goes on in those departments that gets hidden, like the COVID babies, as you just mentioned. There's so much stuff that's now years later starting to come out. But you've got to take the temperature of the store and the dealership and the ownership that you're buying from and see how they did. What's their take? Go on Google reviews, see how the reviews are.
And
that tells you a lot of how customers feel about the place, how they were treated. And some of them are exaggerated. We know that, but we use a percentage as a factor to be able to determine whether there's some legitimacy to it or not. But that's when I say due diligence, that's what I'm talking about. It's the stuff we do. We do the legwork because that's how we operate. If we were operating the store, those are the things we look for, on a daily basis. So if you're buying or selling, certainly if you're buying, you want to be able to look for those things to be able to use as a barometer. Because if you miss it, man, it can get, you can sue. But who wants to tie up your time and money with that situation if you can avoid it?
Yeah, you guys mentioned it earlier, but the personnel that you're inheriting or hiring may have a pattern of these kinds of tactics and practices, especially when you look at the background and you see. And a lot of dealers are now recording the F&I transaction. They're saying, hey, up front, I'm going to disclose we're recording this for your protection and our protection. Want to make sure all the disclosures are very transparent. We have a tape on our file, and we're going to follow the book. And
I do in my dealership. I have cameras in the sales department. I have cameras in the F&I office. Yeah. And we before we sign, because we want the customer to acknowledge. Because a lot of times they'll look up and they ask, and we say, no, it's pure protection.
Exactly.
So that that you are Mr. Jones, right? You're Mr. Jones, aren't you?
The perfect witness. Sure. The perfect witness.
Okay.
Your Honor, let me play the tape.
Yeah, we're winding down here today. Let's do a couple of shameless plugs, and then we'll talk about next show. And shameless plug: www.dealerconfidentialpodcast.com. Go there. All our podcasts are there. You get Hal's white paper. While Hal was away, he wrote a new white paper.
I did? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. So you're going to be able to get that new white paper while he was at his conference. he was able to steal a bunch of good ideas from everybody else.
Indeed, I did.
Second thing, you go to dealer. It's dealer-confidential.com, which is our main website. You can do that. We have a number of advertisers and marketers coming to us looking for positions in the show. We're just weeding through them right now. We want to bring the best ones to you. And we're looking for advertisers and sponsors who will help our dealers either sell or put the deal together. Joe has some F&I products and people that are coming on board. We'll have a guest, I think, in the next week or so on that and talk about that. But if you want to get your word out there, if you want to get your company out there, please, we'd love to talk to you first and see if it will be a good mix with all of us here. So, again, dealerconfidentialpodcast.com. Do it. Register. Sign up. Get Hal's white paper. I'll read it first before I send it to you. I promise. And
We'll record you reading it just to make
absolutely,
sure
with the cameras. Now, Joe, what do we talk? We talked about this a little bit. What are we talking about next show?
I mean, there's a lot we could talk about. I mean, I always think I know that you and I talked about this particular subject matter, and also again the spinoff of F&I. And,
Yes,
and
right.
and I think we can piggyback the next show with this one, which I think is important. Is talk about process, right?
Right.
What is a dealer doing to create the process to make sure that they're being compliant, to make sure that the rogue employees are sniffed out? Because if you put processes in place, usually those processes can sniff out the bad actors.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys don't have processes. And I think we need to talk about that and help the dealers understand how incredibly important it is, whether it's service or sales, but certainly in sales where you're dealing with,
Right.
the credit application, the social security number of the customer, you're getting into ethical issues, and really, it's most places don't even have a playbook.
Yeah,
So
a little bit of carryover.
I would love to talk. I would love to continue this subject further into the nuts and bolts of what's going on out there. What can we say to the public and say, guys, pay attention here. It's critical.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think I'll put together a seller kind of a pre-market checklist to
Good.
address the compliance nature of this stuff when a lawsuit is out there or some bad news is out there. So that sounds like a good show.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, if you're even thinking about buying or selling, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you. Our consultations, most of them, the beginning ones, are free of charge. We just want to learn a little bit about you. We had a bunch of dealers calling that we're trying to help right now. So please don't hesitate. Get online, send an email, send a text. We'd love to get back to you. Opportunities are still out there. Oil crisis, all that other stuff, it doesn't matter. America's bulletproof on a lot of these things. So it's still a very good time. Tax season is just about over. Dealers realize what they have to do, and they're calling us. Hal's got a bunch of dealers that are selling, and I got more than enough dealers that are buying.
I was going to say it's like 15-1 buyers to sellers. So if you're a seller, we're operating in a strong seller's market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So give us a
Take
call.
care of it. Okay, shameless plugs done. Thanks,
All right.
guys. Hal, good seeing you again. Wait a minute. Well, wait, Hal. Did we answer
Here we go.
the question for
Here
today?
we go, guys.
Did we?
I fought the law and the law won. See
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.